Welcome to In His Grip with Dr. Chuck F. Betters, produced by Mark Inc. Ministries. Each In His Grip message is designed to help turn your hearts toward Jesus and equip you to walk by faith. Let's join Dr. Betters in the sanctuary as he preaches the series, Treasures of Faith.
And I want to read beginning with chapter 10 in the book of Exodus, verse 1. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Go to Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart and the hearts of his officials, so that I may perform these miraculous signs of mine among them, that you may tell your children and your grandchildren how I dealt harshly with the Egyptians and how I performed my signs among them, and that you may know that I am the Lord." So Moses and Aaron went to Pharaoh and said to him, "This is what the Lord, the God of the Hebrews, says. How long will you refuse to humble yourself before me? Let my people go, so that they may worship me. If you refuse to let them go, I will bring locusts into your country tomorrow. They will cover the face of the ground so that it cannot be seen. They will devour what little you have left after the hail," that was the previous plague, "including every tree that is growing in your fields. They will fill your houses and those of all your officials and all the Egyptians, something neither your fathers nor your forefathers have ever seen from the day they settled in this land till now." Then Moses turned and left Pharaoh. Pharaoh's officials said to him, "How long will this man be a snare to us? Let the people go, so that they may worship the Lord their God. Do you not yet realize that Egypt is ruined?" Then Moses and Aaron were brought back to Pharaoh. "Go, worship the Lord your God," he said. "But just who will be going?" Moses answered, "We will go with our young and our old, with our sons and our daughters, with our flocks and herds, because we are to celebrate a festival to the Lord." Pharaoh said, "The Lord be with you." Isn't that kind of him? "If I let you go along with your women and children, the Lord be with you if I let you go with your women and children. Clearly, you are bent on evil. No, have only the men go and worship the Lord, since that's what you have been asking for." Then Moses and Aaron were driven out of Pharaoh's presence. And the Lord said to Moses, "Stretch out your hand over Egypt, so that locusts will swarm over the land and devour everything growing in the fields, everything left by the hail." So Moses stretched out his staff over Egypt, and the Lord made an east wind blow across the land all that day and all that night. By morning, the wind had brought the locusts. They invaded all Egypt and settled down in every area of the country in great numbers. Never before had there been such a plague of locusts, nor will there ever be again. They covered all the ground until it was black. They devoured all that was left after the hail, everything growing in the fields and the fruit on the trees. Nothing green remained on tree or plant in all of the land of Egypt. Pharaoh quickly summoned Moses and Aaron and said, I have sinned against the Lord your God and against you. Now forgive my sin one more time and pray to the Lord your God to take this deadly plague away from me. Moses then left Pharaoh and prayed to the Lord, and the Lord changed the wind to a very strong west wind, which caught up the locust and carried them into the Red Sea. Not a locust was left anywhere in Egypt. But the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, and he would not let the Israelites go. When you study certain passages in the Bible, certain things become very, very illustrative of other things. In other words, when we study one passage, we have to look elsewhere to see how God used a similar situation to unveil his plan and his purposes. When you come to the book of Joel, we have once again a plague of locusts. Now turn to the book of Joel. Have you found it yet? It's a minor prophet. Now, minor does not mean it's minor in importance. It just means it's smaller than the other prophets like Isaiah or Ezekiel or Daniel. It's a small book. Go with me to the first chapter of the book of Joel. Now, here is what God says. The word of the Lord that came to Joel, the son of Pethuel. Hear this, you elders. Listen, all you who live in the land. Has anything like this ever happened in your days or in the days of your forefathers? Tell it to your children. Let your children tell it to their children and their children to the next generation. Now that sounds like what God told Moses to do. I am about to do a work. I am about to inflict a plague that's unlike the other ones, he told Moses. The other ones were designed to show the hardness of Pharaoh's heart and to ripen him for judgment. This plague and the ones to follow are for the purpose of preparing you to prepare your children and your grandchildren that I am the Lord their God. And so he says what is about to happen here is for the purpose of you transmitting to your children and to your children's children a very clear message. God means business with our children. He doesn't give us our children as toys. He doesn't give us our children so that we can meet our 1.3 quota of having kids. We have so demeaned children and so demeaned the context of parenthood in this generation. We've lost a whole generation. Do you know what the statistics are? My parents' generation, the statistics are, in my parents' generation, the ones who were the Depression and World War II people, that generation, most of them were Christians. Most of them were churched. It was abnormal for somebody in that generation not to be churched. It was abnormal for churches to be empty. City churches were filled to the brim. Large congregations were being built. New structures had to be erected because there was an adherence to Christian ideals. My generation, the statistics dropped. The generation after me, that generation, the statistics dropped. Do you realize that the generation that is being raised right now, the children that are being born right now, that Generation X, that young generation, that buster generation, do you know what the statistics are? That less than 4% of them will be Christians. We've nearly lost a whole generation. We have so demeaned our responsibilities to our children to teach them of the character and the nature of God. We've lost a whole generation. And they have absolutely no role models, no heroes, nobody they can pin their hopes on, nobody they can point to and say, I need to model my life after him. I need to model my life after her. It's no wonder kids are killing kids. We're losing a whole generation because we're failing to tell them that the locusts are coming. So God warns them. He says, tell it to your children, verse 4. What the locust swarm has left, the great locust have eaten. What the great locust left, the young locust have eaten. What the young locust have left, other locusts have eaten. Wake up, you drunkards, and weep. Many of us have learned that the trivialities of life just don't matter anymore. There are issues much more important. There are people dying out there, people hurting, people hating, people abusing, people struggling. We come to church and we play. The locusts are coming. He says in verse 6, a nation has invaded my land, powerful and without number. It has the teeth of a lion, the fangs of a lioness. It has laid waste my vines and ruined my fig trees. It has stripped off their bark and thrown it away, leaving their branches white. Mourn like a virgin in sackcloth, grieving for the husband of her youth. Then he says in verse 13, put on sackcloth, O priests, and mourn. Wail, you who minister before the altar. Come, spend the night in sackcloth, you who minister before my God. For the grain offerings and drink offerings are withheld from the house of your God. Declare a holy fast. Call a sacred assembly. Summon the elders and all who live in the land to the house of the Lord your God and cry out to the Lord. What a dreadful day! For the day of the Lord is near. It will come like destruction from the Almighty. Has not the food been cut off before your very eyes? Joy and gladness from the house of our God. The seeds are shriveled beneath the clods. The storehouses are in ruins. The granaries have been broken down, for the grain is dried up. How the cattle moan. The herds mill about because they have no pasture. Even the flocks of sheep are suffering. In other words, I fired the warning shots. Can't you see the signs? To you, O Lord, I call, for fire has devoured the open pastures, and flames have burned up all the trees of the field. Even the wild animals pant for you. The streams of water have dried up, and fire has devoured the open pastures. And then he says this in chapter 2, blow the trumpet in Zion, sound the alarm on my holy hill. Let all who live in the land tremble, for the day of the Lord is coming. It is close at hand, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of clouds and blackness. Like dawn spreading across the mountain, a large and mighty army comes, such as never was of old, nor ever will be in ages to come. You see, this army is going to be different than the army that Moses sent. The army that Moses sent were bugs. They were locusts. But now the army that God's talking about in the day of Judah was a physical army. They were going to swarm on Judah like locusts. They were going to come in herds. They were going to devour the people of God and send them into captivity and judge them for their failure to follow after the holiness of God. A different kind of locust. Now, go over to the book of Revelation, the very last book of the Bible, and look with me at Revelation chapter 9. Now, please keep in mind, when you read the book of Revelation, God is dealing with very precise illustrations of what he plans to do in the end times. We have now gone from bugs in the Exodus to soldiers in the book of Joel to demons in Revelation. Now listen closely, friends. We're in a spiritual warfare. We are in a spiritual battle. The prize is your soul. The prize is the soul of a nation. The prize is the heart of a child. If Satan can't have you, he wants your kids. And when you come to Revelation 9, it says, the fifth angel sounded his trumpet, and I saw a star that had fallen from the sky to the earth. The star was given the key to the shaft of the abyss. When he opened the abyss, that's hell. When he opened up hell, smoke rose from it like the smoke from a gigantic furnace. The sun and the sky were darkened by the smoke from the abyss. You'll notice in all three plagues, whether it be in the Exodus or in Joel or in this one, the sending of the swarm, the accompanying sign is the sign of darkness. You ever been in real darkness? Notice what it says. The sun and the sky were darkened by the smoke from the abyss. And out of the smoke, locusts came down upon the earth and were given power like that of the scorpions on the earth. Now, these are symbols, but they're pointed symbols. Now we know that hell's unleashed. These demonic powers come up. There's this smoke. We don't know what that smoke means except that it brings darkness. Now, no matter where you turn in the Bible, no matter where you turn, darkness is always the same as the absence of God's presence. Whenever there's darkness, what the Bible's trying to tell you is that God abandons the scene. God abandons the scene, and the lights are turned out. You ever felt alienated from God that way? When we lost our son, that night we went to the hospital, we had a darkness. Now, we know God did not abandon us, but it sure felt like it. That's why when you read the stories in the Gospels about Jesus dying on the cross, the Bible says they nailed him to the cross at 9 o'clock in the morning. The first nail was pounded into his hands and feet at 9 o'clock in the morning. They raised him up on that cross, and for 3 hours, from 9 until 12, the thief on the right and the thief on the left cursed. The people walked by and wagged their heads. They cursed him. They blasphemed him. They plucked out his beard. They spit at him. They watched him there on that cross naked. And during that time, 5 of his sayings came out. Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. And all those sayings came out. And then the Bible tells us something strange happened at noon. From 12 o'clock until 3 o'clock, the last of the 6 hours that he was on the cross, for those 3 hours, God abandoned his son. He deserted him on the cross. He turned his back and turned the lights out. And darkness set in. The only thing we hear during those 3 hours are these piercing words, my God, why have you forsaken me? You see, the forsaking of God, the abandonment of God is what darkness is. That's why the 9th plague after the locust is the plague of darkness. God sends the judgment. Did you ever wonder what that darkness must have been like? When Moses went before God and turned the lights out, all over Egypt there was darkness. God had abandoned the land, except over in Goshen. In Goshen, the sun was still shining. I don't even know how to explain that to you. I don't even know where to begin. How could there be light over there that I could see and darkness envelops me here? God had abandoned the people, turned the lights out, just like he turned the lights out on his son. He turned the lights out on his son for you. You know what hell is? A place of torment. And the greatest torment of all in hell is that it is absolutely, completely, 100% devoid of God's presence. God can be nowhere found in hell. What makes hell so painful is the absence of God. We don't understand that because we can't see God. All we see is the product or the byproduct of God's presence. We see trees. We go out on a beautiful day like today and we absorb the sun. We go to the ocean and we watch it roar. We go out at nighttime and we look at the millions of stars up there. The Big Dipper's still there. The Little Dipper's still there. The moon still shines, and we look at the beauty of God's creation and we see the byproduct or the fruit of God's presence. But imagine when he turns the lights out. Imagine when he withdraws his presence. You know what the Bible says? The sun refuses to shine. The moon's turned into blood. The locusts begin to swarm, but now these aren't ordinary locusts. These are demonic powers. Look at verse 4. They were told not to harm the grass of the earth or any plant or tree. Now, that's what these bugs normally do. But only those people who did not have the seal of God on their foreheads, only those who didn't know Christ. That's what that means. They were not given power to kill them, but only to torture them for 5 months. Now remember, this is symbolic. 5 months is the lifespan of a locust. And the agony they suffered was like that of a sting of a scorpion when it strikes a man. During those days, men will seek death, but will not find it. They will long to die, but death will elude them. The locusts looked like horses prepared for battle. On their heads, they wore something like crowns of gold, and their faces resembled human faces. Scholars have had a ball with that passage, by the way, trying to figure out what they are. Their hair was like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth. They had breastplates like breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the thundering of many horses and chariots rushing into battle. They had tails and stings like scorpions, and in their tails they had power to torment people for 5 months. They had as king over them the angel of the abyss, that's Satan, whose name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek, Apollyon, in English, Lucifer. Now listen to me, friends. We are talking here about warning shots. Pharaoh sought to compromise 4 different times with Moses. On earlier plagues, he went to Moses, he said, I'll tell you what, let's make a deal. Here's what I'll do. I'll let the people go, but they have to stay within the borders of the land. That's what he would say second. Stay within the parameters of the land, but stay where I can see you. Each time, Moses turns it down. The third time, Moses bargained with Pharaoh. He said, I'll tell you what, let the men go. Give me your kids. And the last time, he says, take the men, take the women, take the kids, but give me your money. 4 times he sought to compromise. 4 times. Stay in the land. Don't go very far. Give me your kids. Give me your money. You see what's going on here? When Satan knows his time is short, he seeks to compromise. He seeks to water things down. A little compromise. No problem. Just a little bit of compromise. Nothing real serious. Just a little inroad into your structure of spirituality. Just a little bit of compromise into who you are as a Christian. I mean, after all, we can't be too fanatical about this, can we? After all, what would they say out there if they saw that you were serious about your faith? I mean, it might cost you something. You might have to pay a heavy price tag. Somebody might call you a name. Somebody might say you are a fanatic. You are a fundamentalist. That's the politically correct term these days. If you want to put somebody down, you call them a fundamentalist. Right-wing extremist, religious radical. You put the label in there and then shrink away from the label because you certainly don't want to impress anybody with the fact that you're taking your faith seriously. We tend to think that because we come to church and pay our respects, give our tithes, maybe pop into a Bible study here or there, and we think when we do things like that, that we've entered spiritual warfare. That's nothing compared to the warfare we're going to have to face. All over the world, Christians are dying for that label. They come to our country and they can't figure out what our problem is. They don't care in underground churches about the color of your skin. They don't care. We were out in the golf course the other day. I was worshiping the Lord that day. I do take a day off periodically and I go golfing. That's what I like to do. And they hooked us up with two other guys. And we were talking about the NCAA basketball tournament, the March Madness. And these guys were retired executives from DuPont, wealthy men, not much to do with themselves, and lost as the devil. And as the day unfolded, we heard more and more of their bigotry coming out. I mean, they wanted certain teams to win because they had more white kids on it than black kids. Making jokes about the SAT scores of the Sanford players or the Princeton players compared to the Utah players or the North Carolina players, and all these racial remarks coming out. And you know what I couldn't help but ask myself? Is as horrible as that is, as unloving and hateful as that is, what is the most segregated hour in all of America? 11 o'clock Sunday mornings. We have black churches, we have white churches, we have Hispanic churches, we have Chinese churches, we have Korean churches. I don't know of too many multicultural, multi-ethnic churches where God's people truly reflect the spirit of Romans 16, where the barbarian and the Scythian, the bond, the free, the Jew, the Gentile, the male, the female, the rich and the poor, all sang in the same choir and all worshiped before the same Lord.
Thank you for listening. For the complete sermon, please visit markinc.org and click In His Grip. Join Dr. Chuck F. Betters in the sanctuary from Monday to Thursday on the In His Grip podcast.